That's not up to me to decide as mayor. So if you believe you're discussing something.
Can we just before that topic take a short break, and I'll show what I'm talking about to Laura?
Okay, council, we haven't adopted an agenda yet, so we, to my knowledge, can't go into closed session. Go into closed session after we adopt an agenda if you'd like, or you could rearrange the agenda so it's amended, and then we can go and deal with the topic that you'd like to deal with. Councillor Taylor, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay. Administration, any additions or deletions to today's agenda?
Nothing from administration.
Council, I'll entertain a motion. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that we adopt the regular council meeting agenda for Tuesday, January 11th, 2022, as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? Let's pass unanimously. That'll bring us to our council minutes for adoptions. Council, any questions, or I'll accept the direction. Councillor Hawes.
I'd like to move that we adopt the regular meeting council minutes for December 21st, 2021.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That is passed unanimously. That'll bring us to our citizens minute with council. Administration, are there any today that have called in?
And thank you.
Thank you for that. Seeing no delegations or presentations, boards or committees, that'll bring us to our action items for this evening. And the first one is the borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenditures bylaw 1165. And I'll hand it over to CAO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. This item will look familiar to you. We had it in front of council and it received all 3 readings on December 21st. Since then, we become aware that there were some typos and a financial error in section 2B, where there were a few too many zeros in the MasterCard limit, where it reads $1 million instead of the 100,000 that is intended. So what you see before you this afternoon is the corrections on page 11 of your package, highlighted in red what it was and what it is now. Again, some spelling mistakes, a couple words were excluded, and the correction on that MasterCard limit. Nothing else in the bylaw has been changed, and it doesn't change the intent of what you had approved, but we are seeking all 3 readings this evening for those amendments.
Thank you, CAO Howard. Council, any questions or direction? Councillor Taylor.
What does section 6 mean? I read that and I couldn't quite understand that. The part that's above, in any event, this bylaw shall expire on December 31st, 2022.
Administration.
There's one long sentence there and I didn't quite fully understand it.
Are you asking me to interpret the entire section 6?
Yeah.
Okay, give me a minute and let me read that for you. So apologies to council, we don't have our legal or corporate advice here today, so let me just read that and see if I can help you out.
No, just to...
Council, in the meantime, we can go to, are there any other questions? Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, I've been here before where we've done all these readings in one go, and I'm just wondering what the consequence of just taking it to a certain point and then giving us a little breather in case there's something that happens like happened last time, you know, rather than doing it all in one go. Is there a consequence to that I should be aware of?
So with that, Ms. Howard, I guess 2 questions. One, the first one regarding the interpretation of section 6, and the other one, if it was the will of council to only do a few readings this evening and we were to pass this on January 18th, any issues with that, or what would be any consequences to consider?
I will answer the second question first, because that's, I believe, a little bit more straightforward. All that would mean if you did not, until this bylaw is passed, you don't have access to that borrowing. And don't need that anytime soon, then that's fine. You can do this at your next meeting, which we would, next regular meeting is next week. I believe we can turn this around and bring it back again for the rest of your readings 7 days from now, assuming there aren't any changes. If there's any other changes council would like to see other than the ones that administration has made, then we push that out to February 1st. I think off the top of my head, again, without having my full team here to support in the legislative and corporate sides, that's the best answer I can give you at this point. And regarding the full section 6, again, the first part of that, I cannot interpret that for you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Administration. Councillor Taylor. Councillor Magoon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to make a motion that council give first reading to the amended borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenditures bylaw, number 1165.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have first reading on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Council, any appetite for second reading? No, Councillor LaBerge.
I move that council give second reading to the amended borrowing line of credit to finance the operating expenditures bylaw 1165.
Thank you, Councillor LaBerge. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any questions, debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? Council, any appetite for unanimous consent this evening? Oh, Ms. Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, allowing me to speak here. Rethinking my response to the question, because you have a current bylaw in place, that would be the one that stands true if this one doesn't get fully passed tonight, which means the largest risk to the town is that your credit cards would get racked up to the tune of $1 million before you actually, which of course the risk of that would be nil actually, but the rest of the bylaw, there are spelling errors that doesn't change the borrowing line of credit. So we would still have access to that line of credit. The biggest risk between now and when you did all 3 readings is that the credit card limit would remain at $1 million instead of being brought down to the 100,000 it is intended to do. So my apologies for saying you wouldn't have one at all and that you couldn't access it. You can access the line of credit for the 900,000, or sorry, the 1,900,000. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Ms. Howard. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, my desire to lower the credit limit overwhelms my other desires, so I'll vote for unanimous consent.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes.
Yeah, I'd like to move the council give unanimous consent for the third reading to amend borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenditures bylaw 1165.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have on the floor unanimous consent. That would then bring us to third reading. Any questions or debate? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That's passed. That brings us, gives us the ability to pass third reading. Councillor Race.
Sorry?
Councillor Race.
Oh, okay, sorry, sir. Thank you, sir. I'd like to move that, just let me get it here. I'd like to move the council give third reading to the amended borrowing line of credit to finance operating expenditures bylaw 1165.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, again, on the floor is third reading. Any questions or debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? Thank you, Council. That's passed unanimously. Anything else for this item this evening? And seeing none, thank you, Administration and Council. That'll bring us to our second action item, Hinton golf cart status and leasing open. Our options. CEO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to council. We're seeking support from council this evening to enter into a joint 4-year golf cart lease agreement with the Hinton Golfing Society. You have a bit of history in the report that brings you to the bit of an urgent situation we were in just before Christmas with the society needing to enter into agreement for the lease of new carts in order for the to be prepared for the next golf season. I won't take more time to go through the report, but if I may invite Ms. Debbie Weber, she is our engineering and development manager and the author of this report, as well as Winston Trousseau, who is our director from that area. Ms. Weber, if you could just speak, if there's anything you wanted to highlight, and as well if there's any new information since the report was published that you would like council to be aware of before they did deliberate. Thank you.
Thank you, CAO Howard, through to the chair and to the rest of council this evening. I hope you can see me. I'd just like to point out throughout the report here that there have been some new developments since the writing of this report. So the proposal of the new 4-year golf cart lease starting 2022 includes a buyout of the current fleet with a balance remaining of 93,000 and some change. That balance is a little bit different now that we actually have a copy of the lease agreement itself. We just received that after this was written, so the number for the balance of the payout is slightly different, quite different actually. I would also like to bring your attention to just to the fact that the decision and the reason for ordering the golf carts over the Christmas break before the 28th of December was prompted, first of all, by the manufacturer's deadline to ensure that we had new golf carts for the start of the 2022 season. And we also wanted to make sure that we, reduce the impacts to the golfing season as much as possible with that. And the third part of that is just to mitigate some of the supply chain constraints that have been identified, which is why the manufacturer wanted such an early ordering date. So the rationale for placing the order were for those reasons. I would also like to just point out to council that to place that order in no way was a financial agreement between the town and the third party or the society and the third party that's supplying the cart. There's no legal binding financial commitment on behalf of the town to make that order. The only change would be if it was the wish of council tonight to make a change and to not follow through with a lease agreement, is that there would be an administrative penalty of $500 to $1,500 as identified by the manufacturer. So that would be the only change or impact to the town of Hinton and to town council tonight. So I just wanted to highlight those things out of the report. It is not a financial agreement by any stretch, just to put the order in. The golf cart lease, so in the financial analysis section of the report, the new golf cart lease listed at $243,000 is in fact not a correct number now that we've gotten the lease agreement from the Hinton Golfing Society. So that will require some review between ourselves and the Hinton Golfing Society as well. I would like to open it up at this point to any questions council may have for me.
Thank you, administration. I have Councillor Hawes and Councillor Taylor.
So I guess my first question is we at this point then don't have a number, a dollar figure that's different with having now the lease, your hands on the lease and seeing. I heard seems like a significant change from the 93,000 it mentioned. Is there a dollar figure you have or not at this time?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor Hawes. You're correct. I have seen the lease agreement. There are some things in that lease agreement to discuss with this society, so I do not have an updated number to provide you with, other than that it is substantially different than the number presented in the report. It's more than what was in the report.
If I may follow up, just one more, I guess, then question. I know that I hear you saying there's no financial obligation if we were to put an order in. However, my sense is what we're ultimately doing is backing this order. And if for some reason the golf course society was in default of any sort, then it would fall onto the town to pick up the cost of that. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. Through to the chair, to Councillor Haas, you are correct. The implication of the town co-signing the lease agreement is that if the Hinton Golfing Society were to default on a payment, the town would make that payment. The intention is for the Golfing Society to maintain those payments moving forward, and should there be a different operator of the golf course, those payments would then be translated across and become part of the payment structure for the new operator of the golf course. But you are 100% correct. In a default situation, the town would be required to make those payments.
You follow up? So if that were to, I guess, I mean, I have a lot of questions now that knowing that that's not the amount. How in arrears was the Golf Society in their current lease that we are picking up? Because I see here $74,000 in the current lease. So that's how much arrears they were in. Is that correct?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor Hawes. So there were some payments that the society owed on the golf cart lease that got deferred back in 2019 and 2020 due to COVID and due to other operating issues that they had, that they were not able to make those payments, which is why the current golf cart lease payment is so high for a payout at this time. They technically should have been finished paying on that lease agreement already, but because of those deferrals, it has remained a balance there outstanding. Does that answer your question, Councillor Haas? Okay,
I just
thank
have
you.
one more follow-up if I'm allowed.
I'll put it.
Okay. Yep.
Councillor Taylor?
Can you explain what the consequence, I mean, generally, I think I'm in favor of going ahead with the lease, but what's the consequence of just waiting 2 weeks while you sort out some of these details and give us some revised numbers so we can understand our liability? Is there a consequence to that? Just wait a week, a couple of weeks to get better numbers and then make the decision?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor Taylor. You are correct. We could bring this back to another regular council meeting for decision once we've got more details around the current lease arrangement.
Perhaps even giving us a copy of the lease to read.
Correct.
Okay, no consequence. Perfect.
No consequence to my knowledge, Councillor Taylor.
Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor LeBerge?
Nope.
Oh. Councillor Riggs?
I think Councillor McGowan was before me.
Councillor McGoon.
Thank you. I guess my question for administration, I think I'm much of the same mind as Councillor Taylor. Would we be needing, I know our next regular council meeting is the 18th. Is it necessarily, like, would we have the information on the updated financials by the 18th, or would we need to look at going longer?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor McGoon. Yes, we would have an update for the financial arrangement for the lease agreement by the 18th, if that was the wish of council.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Riggs?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologies if you spoke on this. Have we seen the financials that were due to us in November? Have they been presented to us?
Thank you. Through to the chair, to Councillor Race. Yes, those financials were presented. The information that we did have was presented to council December 7th, prior to the Hinton Golfing Society coming and doing their presentation as part of the civic agency presentations.
Can I follow up, please? I would like to make a motion, please. I'd like to direct administration to extend an invitation. And is Cal the general manager?
Administration?
Just use the title.
You're looking for the,
Just use his title.
Golf course general manager.
the council direct administration to extend an invitation to the golf course general manager and the president of the golf club so we can attain more information on the subject. I just think there's so much going on here that we just don't know. I don't know. That I'd certainly like to get some answers from these people.
Councillor Race, is that look good?
I would like a date associated to that, so when this comes back to us,
CO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Just to provide a little assistance here. So if, I just wanted to clarify with Ms. Weber, so in the next 2 days, maybe 3 days, before the council agenda package comes out, we will be able to have this matter secured and be able to bring the administrative information that they've asked for. Is that correct? Okay,
Yes,
thank you very much.
Yeah.
Okay. Sometimes when we talk about a week away, we think we have 7 days when we really don't. It's 2 or 3 business days to get that ready. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you,
Anything else, Ms.
CAO
Weber?
Howard. I believe that we just need a conversation again with the Hinton Golfing Society manager to clarify some of these details for council.
Okay, thank you very much. So with that being said, in the second piece, if I could just suggest, so with the motion that's up on the screen here, that the president of the Hinton Golfing Society add that. Your intention is to extend an invitation for them to attend a regular meeting or committee of the whole meeting?
well, when this, if I may, sir, when this comes back to council for discussion, I'd certainly like them to be here to, give us any information that they can add to the discussion.
Thank you. If I may, through to Councillor Race. So we can certainly invite them to be here to support this report when it comes back next, and that they would be a support to the administrative report, or we can invite them as a delegation, that they would come and follow the delegation process where council may have questions directly for the president and the general manager. So a couple different approaches on that, but I believe your intent is to bring it back then to the January 18th regular council meeting. Add the date to that. Was that,
Yeah.
do I represent your intent correctly? Okay.
I just want it to be very workable for them and for council and for us to come to a point where we have some resolve with the information that we need to make a good decision.
So if I would recommend then that the invitation be extended to them to come and support this action item, when we are rebringing this administrative report, that way it'll be fairly easy for council to engage them in any questions and supporting this report. Otherwise, if we bring them as a delegation, that would be at the top of your meeting, and the questions would come to them at that time. And of course, administration doesn't participate in a delegation portion of your meeting. That would be my recommendation if that's.
I'm certainly open to anyone on council who can make this motion better or just make it workable for all of us.
Councillor Race, are you good with the wording there?
I am, but I'll certainly entertain comments from the rest of council on this.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Council, we have a motion on the floor at the moment. I have Councillor LeBaert and Councillor Taylor.
Question for administration, I guess, is would it make it better if we were to put that wording in there that they're invited in support of the administrative report.
Brian Michaels through to Councillor Barge. If we understand that that is the intent, then that is that's frame that we will extend the invitation. I think the other part of that is that right now we do not have an operating agreement with the Hinton Golfing Society. That has expired. So we have a couple trains on a couple different tracks heading in a similar direction. I can describe it that way. So that would, at this point, because we don't have an operating agreement with them to operate the golf course, that has not been addressed at this point. It makes the best sense, I think, to support this report is that they come as to assist this decision of council. As we discussed earlier in the meeting, this is something that because we would be co-signing this and we would be liable for this arrangement if the conditions change with an operator, but right now we have no operator.
Councilor Bears?
Sure, I mean, if this works, if the intent's in place, great.
Thank you, Councilor Bears. Councilor Taylor?
Would the wording not be more supportive of what we want to do if it was reworded to say something like council direct administration to extend an invitation to the golf course general manager and the president of the Golfers Society so that they can support council's decision on the Hinton Golfing Society golf cart lease arrangement on January 18th? Would that work?
Councilor Reese?
Well, I'm just thinking, what if they did not support council's decision?
Well, they're not just, I mean support with information, really.
Okay.
I mean, they don't get to say yes or no. They get the support with information is what the words that I meant.
I'm certainly open to a friendly amendment.
Because then that gets both us, I think having them come is not a bad idea, but I would amend it that way if I was going to advise you.
Councilor Reese or Councilor Taylor, do you have a friendly amendment you're proposing?
No, I see Brian's got his hand up.
Thank you.
Well, okay.
Councilor Magoon?
I just have a question. I mean, for myself, the only question that I have at this point is what the total liability potentially is to the town. It's a question about backstopping a financial decision. So my question would be, what information, Councilor Race, are you looking to get by having the director and the president in?
Councilor Reese?
You know, there's, in reading this report, in reading anything that says liability to the town, I would just like a face-to-face with the Hinton Golf Course to talk to us about the golf cart status. And I guess we should keep it, you know, exactly to that. But I just think there's a conversation that needs to happen between the two of us.
If I may, and respectfully at this point, I disagree. I think it's, for myself, it's a matter of funding. In order for the golf course to maintain operations into the next year, they need a cart lease agreement. That's just a fact. And the question that I don't have answered is what's the potential cost to the town? Because they can't do that on their own because they don't have any assets. So for myself, we have a lot with budget and upcoming issues. For myself, I'm just trying to trim down. I'd like to trim down what we have to do in meetings. And I just need the financials of what it's going to cost us potentially. But that's just for myself. If it's the will of council to have a face-to-face with all parties, that's fine. But I don't need that.
Thank you, Councilor Magoon. Councilor Haas?
Yeah, we had our opportunity in the civic agency when they came to us to ask them questions. We didn't, but we didn't have a lot of information. It seems like there's more information to come to us. And really what it boils down to, I agree, is this is the financials. We've seen their financials, having a conversation with them. Granted, maybe could have been sooner, but we're at a point now where I'm not sure if that's what we need at this point. It's looking at the money, the investments, the liability, what it means to the future. quite frankly, I'm struggling with this without having an agreement with this organization, even having one into the leases. And I'd prefer to see that. To me, this is putting the cart before the horse in a way, because we have nobody running the golf course at this point. So I guess there's, so I'm not sure. I'd like to just see the financials personally. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Councillor Taylor?
My suggestion, Councillor Race, would be that this kind of discussion might be useful when we're get into signing the agreement, the general discussion of stuff for the agreement. I think that's maybe a good idea to meet with them. But for specifically what we have to do right now, we just need to get that number, get it done. And then when we talk about the agreement, I think there's a bunch of outstanding stuff that they have from commitments in the past that we want to talk about with them. And that's kind of the stuff that I think you might be referring to, or we might need to talk about.
Councillor Haas?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor. I'm in agreement of that, because there is I have some genuine concerns of the obligations that haven't been met by the society in the past. You know, one being the amount of the inventory that was purchased that was over the budget that was told to them to come to council. These are conversations, I think that those are the conversations to have. I would be in agreement for that before we have an agreement that we sit down with and I don't even look the general manager, it's more with the board, in my opinion, because the board, that's where the buck stops with them. They direct their general manager. So I would be in agreement of that. I think that needs to be hashed out and having a conversation before we get into that agreement. But as for the golf carts, I mean, I think that's the financials that we're going to see. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. For me, I like the intent of this, but I won't be supporting this. I say let's give our direction to administration. Mr. Russo and Ms. Weber have been working with the society. Let's get our updated report next on the 18th, look at the proper numbers. And there's liabilities on both sides. Not getting a lease has a liability, a new lease. We're keeping the old carts, we're spending money on maintenance and repairs. So the word liability should be used equally on both sides. So to me, I want to look at the goods overall, pros and cons of getting a lease or not a lease, as administration did today with the updated numbers. And on the 18th, we have that conversation. And I'd like to exclude council from another in-depth conversation with the board in order to walk through that. If we have other issues regarding any of the operating, that to me is a separate issue. We have to decide whether we want new carts for 2021 or 2022 or not. And then any other issue we may or may not have, I think are dealt separately. And if the merits of getting a new lease is appropriate, then so be it. And if not, then we take that risk. So for me, my preference would be a motion that speaks to an updated report on the 18th for further discussion. Thank you. Councillor Race.
Thank you, sir. I would like to request permission to withdraw my motion.
Councillor Race has put forward a request to withdraw her motion. Council, any objection to that? Seeing none, motion withdrawn. Councillor, anything else, Councillor Race?
No, I would leave it to my colleagues to come up with the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Taylor, then Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, well, I would move that council direct administration to bring the option 3 here. Direct them to bring the golf Hinton option 3, except with the date January 18th, I think, is what we were talking about. So the council direct administration to bring the Hinton Golfing Society cart lease agreement to the committee of the whole meeting of January 18th, 2022 for further discussion. So I had heard that we would have those numbers figured out by then.
Regular council meeting.
Did I get something wrong?
Councillor Taylor, it's up to you, but administration had indicated earlier that these numbers could be updated for the 18th, but that's your purview. If you're making the motion, it could be at a committee of the whole on the 25th, or it could come next week with that updated change at regular. Again, your purview on deciding which date you'd like to make for your motion.
Well, I'm flexible.
You're making the motion.
Well, the 18th, that's a regular council meeting, correct?
Correct.
We get the revised information, we make a decision.
Correct.
Okay.
Perfect. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, just I guess a quick question with this coming back to us, having our meeting coming up on the 14th and 15th of budget, how is that going to impact our budget conversation for the 14th and 15th?
CEO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Through to Councillor Hawes. The lease agreement should not be a factor. There should be no financial expense related to that. That has to be budgeted for in 2022 for subsequent years. If there's a default by any operator of the golf course in that lease agreement, then it will default to the town of Hinton, but we would not anticipate and budget for that. The other part is in terms of the civic agency part, and that's a separate conversation, and that will come before council on the 14th, 15th regardless.
Councillor Haas.
Yeah, if I may, because one of the questions that I'm going to have probably on the 18th then is if there is a default, where's the money going to come from? I don't want to assume there will be, but I'll be honest with you, there's been defaults that happened in the past, and that concerns me. And where is that money going to come from in the future if it happens? And unfortunately, it's going to be on taxpayers, and that's where I'm concerned. And having that conversation after the budget talks, we don't know where that's going to come from. So, and we don't know that number yet, what that number is going to be until the 18th. So I do have some genuine concerns for this, and that's, I guess, really that conversation about the Golf Society and the future of running the golf course as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, again, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate or questions? Seeing none, call to question that council direct administration to bring the Hinton Golfing Society golf cart lease agreement to the regular council meeting of January 18th, 2022 for further discussion. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item this evening? Councillor Stashik.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, there's been a bunch of discussion about having the Hinton Golfing Society board or general manager come before council to do additional presentation and have council have an opportunity to ask questions. So I'm wondering, does that need a direction to administration from council to arrange that? Further to that, there was some discussion about it happening before the new the operating agreement is signed. I'm fully in favor of that, but it's got quite a bit of bearing on budget discussion too. Realizing it's not going to make it likely before this Friday, Saturday when we have our budget discussions, but I would like the opportunity to be able to talk with that group before the budget is passed. For me personally, there's too much that I don't fully understand yet to be comfortable in passing a budget that includes support for the golf course at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. For myself, I could support a conversation. I think we have two options. Generally, when we have a delegation come in front of us, but often we meet with user groups in a meeting setting, whether it's West Fraser or other companies. So I guess my question to administration, if there's an appetite from council to invite them for a lunch meeting, an afternoon meeting, whether it's this coming Monday or Tuesday prior to council, or any thoughts or comments on that?
Mayor Michaels. Yes, council can certainly direct administration to arrange a meeting that's outside of a regular or a committee meeting for you to meet with the group, or it could be a representation of that. I'm assuming that administration would be there to support you in that conversation and the group as well. Sort of that more robust conversation, especially if the intent is to get us to the next step and what that next step looks like. It would be ideal, if that was your intent, is to have all parties in the room, council, administration, and representation from the Golfing Society. And I may, if I could, just invite Mr. Rousseau or Ms. Weber, because they have been, again, closely dealing with this matter on a parallel track, to speak to if that's an appropriate next step, or if we're quite close to not even needing that step, and we'll be bringing an agreement shortly.
Administration?
Thank you, CAO Howard, through to the chair, to council. I would just like to speak on behalf of the town for that portion. Administration had provided a draft operating agreement to the society October 21st already. Their agreement expired the 31st of October 2021. To date, they have not made any communications forward to sign that agreement, to adjust clauses in the agreement. There's been nothing. So they've had that draft sitting with them since October. I think that there's opportunity for council to talk to the society prior to signing a new operating agreement, as there would be some required changes to the agreement to incorporate comments and clauses regarding this lease, should it get signed as the wish of council.
Thank you, administration. Council. Councillor Stashik?
Is there a deadline for when that agreement needs to be signed?
Administration?
Ms. Weber?
Thank you, CAO Howard, through to the chair, to Councillor Stashik. There is no requirement for it to have been signed by a certain date. It was a one-year term agreement with no renewal clause in it. So it was just set up for 1 year to expire on the 31st of October 2021.
Let me follow up. So that is a little bit troubling to me, considering it's been three months since it's expired. If for some reason the Hinton Golfing Society doesn't have the ability or appetite to continue running the golf course on behalf of the town of Hinton, we need to have time to get another operator in there. So the fact that it's open-ended and we're simply waiting on them is a little bit troublesome to me. That even makes it more pressing to me that there's a conversation between council and the Hinton Golfing Society as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Councillor Taylor?
I agree with the conversation idea. I don't agree with some of the assumptions you made. I think that that idea on having the conversation and getting the agreement and talking to them about the issues with the agreement, we don't know why they've delayed. I wouldn't make those kind of assumptions, but I think having the conversation, having the agreement is a great idea.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Well, if there's an appetite from council to direct administration to set up a meeting with them as soon as possible, Councillor Stashik?
Mr. Mayor, if I could ask a clarifying question of Councillor Taylor on what he's referring to regarding assumptions. What assumptions is Councillor Taylor referring to?
Councillor Taylor?
Well, I believe you made a comment about it was concerning that they had taken 3.5 months to, and then there was a negative implication on that.
That is not an assumption, that's a fact. All I said was if they don't have the appetite or the ability, we need to have the time to be able to find a different operator. I wasn't assuming anything.
Okay, if I assumed that you made some assumptions, I apologize.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, is there an appetite to direct administration to reach out to the society and to the board to have a meeting with council in the coming week? And if so, I would accept the direction if there's appetite to do so. And I would assume some of the topics would be talking about the fact that there's no agreement in place as one option, and any other further discussion that council would like to bring forward. Councillor Stashik.
I have a question for administration. If there's a request from council that the Hinton Golfing Society provide a full financial statement with the understanding that the 2021 fiscal year likely wouldn't be able to provide audited statements, but still a financial statement, would that require a closed session meeting regarding, because it's financial?
The CO Howard.
Mayor Michael, through to Councillor Stashik. I believe Ms. Weber said that we do have that information. This is a registered nonprofit society. Their information is public knowledge at some point when it's audited or otherwise. I think because we haven't had an agreement with them that requires them to submit and share that kind of information with the town, I believe that would be public information. But Ms. Weber, if you can just verify.
Thank you, CAO Howard, through to the chair and to council. We did share already with council the income statement and the balance sheet for the year end for 2021 from the Hinton Golfing Society. That has been shared with council already. The only updated information that we have from the society to date is 2 new income sheets for December and November, which they've been forwarded to finance, but given some staffing constraints, we haven't analyzed those, but we don't have a current balance sheet. So the year-end information, although unaudited, has been presented to council already.
Councillor Stashik? Good.
So the answer is then that no, it does not have to be in a closed session because because they're a public society.
CO Howard?
Sorry, I don't have the legislative or corporate advice here this evening for me. I recognize that once they've filed their financial statements for the year through this is in order to maintain their current status with the Societies Act, that becomes public information. So I suspect that until that is actually filed with the Societies Act and made public, I'm not sure how public their financial statements are. I would probably at this point, without knowing an absolute yes or no to that answer, caution on the air. I would take caution and have that as a closed session.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, any direction, or are we good with our second action item for this evening? See, Councillor Moon?
Yes, sorry, Mr. Mayor, and I apologize for being a little late, but this is sort of crafting on the fly, listening to some of the concerns of council, and trying to merge what Councillor Race had originally brought forward into that. So if it's all right, I'll try bringing something forward, and I would just ask council's flexibility, and I'm certainly willing to work with council. So Jen, whenever you're ready, I'll start reading. Okay. The council direct administration to bring back an update regarding the 2022 operating agreement with the Hinton Golf Society sorry, I believe golfing, yeah, to the January 18th, 2022 regular meeting of council. And, because I'll create a separate clause, administration invite the HGC board president and director of golf operations to assist in updating council. If I may, Mr. Mayor, and I'll speak really to intent at this point. First of all, I want to speak in appreciation of Councillor Race's original motion, because when it was originally made, I did not have the same level of information that administration brought us up to. I think your original motion actually is a lot more important now that I've heard some other things from administration. So I do want to speak to Councillor Race and say thanks. In hearing the concerns of fellow councillors, I do share the same ones. I'd like to get, I'd like to know where the society sits on that agreement before we go entering into a lease. And so I've gotten some information that sort of tells me that's an important thing to hammer out, or at least get a dedicated response from the society on before we go ahead and sign a lease. And if it means delaying that lease, then it may mean delaying that lease, but I'd really like to know where they stand on things. If they've had an operating agreement in hand since October, that is a concern to me. I share the same concern as Councillor Ostash. And hopefully that's a pretty easy response, but I'd like to get that before we go ahead committing town funds anywhere. And I apologize for going on ad nauseum.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have direction on the floor. Any questions, comments, or debates? Councillor Stashik.
I do have a question. Since the complete financial information for the Hinton Golfing Society hasn't been presented in a public meeting, would council have the opportunity to ask questions regarding that financial information in this type of a meeting, or does that require something additional to the motion?
Administration.
Mayor Michaels, through to Councillor Ostashik. That would certainly create the opportunity for you to do that if they felt that they couldn't share that in that setting. They could notify you at that time. That could be part of the conversation we have with them. We understand where the intent is and where some of your questions might come from. And so they will come prepared with that information and to answer those questions or advise us ahead of time that that's not something that they're willing to share.
Thank you, Ms. Howard. Councillor Stashik.
Yeah, thank you.
Councillor Taylor.
With respect to what you just mentioned, Councillor Ostashik, and knowing that it's better to be exact in these kind of things, would it be a good idea to add regarding the 2022 operating agreement and year-end financial statements with the Hinton Golfing Society so that they know that they're coming to talk about both?
Councillor Magoon.
Yeah, certainly speaking to that, absolutely. Yeah, you're right. I think if they know exactly what we'd like to talk about.
Sorry, I got confused who made the motion.
Yeah.
So for Ms. CEO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I just double check with Ms. Weber. Is there, sorry, when did you say that the society's year end was, and do they have, can they actually get their year end financial statement done in the next 3 days in order for us to include that in that?
Thank you, CAO Howard. We were provided the year-end information, but it will not be audited financials from the society in this time frame for the January 18th regular meeting of council.
Thank you very much. Just wanted to clarify that we're not asking something of the board that they cannot deliver. Thank you very much.
Thank you, administration. With that, is there a change to the motion, Councillor Taylor?
Well, if you don't mind, I would recommend adding the words, the 2022 operating agreement and unaudited year-end financial statements.
Councillor Magoon, are you okay with that?
Absolutely, I'd accept that as a friendly amendment.
The 2021 year-end?
Unaudited year-end financial statements, I think.
Sorry, point of clarification. I believe it's not add 2022 operating agreement, just and 2021 unaudited year-end financial.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, if that's Councillor Taylor's intent.
I believe you're right.
And 2022 operating agreement. sorry.
And we're good? Councillor Magoon and Councillor Taylor? Perfect. Okay, Councillor Haas?
Yeah, I'll be speaking in favor of this, and I appreciate it. This is all started with Councillor Races. I mean, in fact, I think, again, this might have been also, I somewhat was disappointed that we didn't see a board member in the presentation in the first place to have this conversation. So I'm definitely in favor of this, to have a board member plus the director come in, ask some of those questions that we have some concerns about, and you know, kind of put our things on the table and see where we're at. So I'm in favor of this. So thank you.
Hey, Councillor Haas, council? We'll just hear, CEO Howard?
Thank you. Just want to, we don't have a 2022 operating agreement. We have a draft operating agreement. If
Correct.
that, thank
Thank
you.
you for that. We can add draft. And Councillor Magoon, any issue with that?
No, not at all.
Thank you. Councillor Race?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a little thing, the HCG, should it be HGC or
GS.
GS? I don't mean to be picky, but
Okay, council. Any further debate, questions, changes? Debate? Councillor Haas?
Sorry, you have HCG board president as well. If you could just change that to the GS.
Well, the first, the top one doesn't,
Isn't the top one what we're?
but Ms. Jen Davy Campbell
Oh,
put,
sorry.
the bottom one is the combined one. So I'll be reading the bottom.
Okay, sorry, thank you.
Councillor LeBerge?
Now to be completely picky, after the financial statements, I think the word wish should be of.
Thank you for that. Councillor Magoon, no issue?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, council, anything further for the amended, friendly amended motion from Councillor Magoon? Seeing none, anything else from you, Ms. Genevieve Campbell? For that, no, okay. I'll move that council direct administration to bring an update regarding the 2022 draft operating agreement and 2021 unaudited year-end financial statements of the Hinton Golfing Society to the January 18, 2022 regular meeting of council and administration. Invite the Hinton Golfing Society Board President and Director of Golf Operation. Okay, Councillor Magoon.
Sorry, just a point of order. It's not being moved by you, correct, Mr. Mayor?
No, it's by Councillor Magoon. Okay, so I'll give it one more crack here. That council direct administration to bring back an update regarding the 2022 draft operating agreement and 2021 unaudited year-end financial statements of the town of the Hinton Golfing Society to the January 18, 2022 regular meeting of council and administration. Invite the Hinton Golfing Society Board President and Director of Golf Operations to assist in updating council. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I understand that we've received a lot of that information in rather a piecemeal fashion. If it's possible, if we could get like the full amalgamated 2021 year-end financial statements as part of that, that would be great.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. CEO Howard, did you have a?
Thank you. I believe we understand what you're looking for, and if we are able to acquire the information in the way that we think you're looking for it, we'll do our best to bring what we have and what's provided to us in time for the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, anything else for our second action item for this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our discussion items. The first one, mandatory face covering bylaw 1162, section 8.1.2. CO Howard?
I have, administration has nothing to speak to regarding your first discussion item.
Perfect, thank you. Councillor Taylor?
Yeah, I did ask administration some questions on this to clarify that the province had a bylaw in addition to us having a bylaw. So I did do that background work, and thank you for that answer. So I wasn't here, but I understand that we did the town of Hinton put in the mandatory face covering bylaw when the province didn't have one. And then a while later, the province put in one. And since then, we have a municipal bylaw. The province has their face covering bylaw. And it would appear that the standard for the province and some of the standards in our municipal bylaw are different. That potentially causes some need for confusion. So we have an overlapping of legislation with provincial and municipal legislation. And I'm not understanding why we have our municipal mask bylaw, mandatory mask bylaw in place when it's covered provincially. Now, I think some people would say that maybe if the provincial mask bylaw cancels out or something like that, then we should have the municipal one in place. But I would say to that point, this pandemic and the circumstances surround it changed so quickly that if that circumstance does occur, I would think it would be wise for this council to have a serious discussion at that point about whether we wanted to have a new municipal mandate or not. Therefore, I was pretty close to putting in a direction to administration to rescind bylaw 1163. But I'm interested in comments.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Hawes?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess the question I have, and what I looked into about that is currently, and administration can correct me if I'm wrong, but there was a time where the provincial government allowed municipal peace officers and everything to enforce their bylaw. They lifted that, didn't reinstate it. So my concern is that if we were to lift our own bylaw, then enforcement would land on the hands of RCMP and would be taken out of the hands of our protective services officers. And I guess if that is correct, I would not be in favor of lifting it, because I believe that our RCMP officers can be utilized in other matters, and our protective services can, assist in enforcing that. But if administration has different information for me, I would welcome it. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Administration?
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to Councillor Hawes. Mr. DeBodra, I'm not sure, sorry, I apologize, I can't see the list of everybody. He is on this evening, thank you. Hello, good evening. I believe Councillor Hawes is correct, but I look to you just to confirm that as things do change quite quickly on this front, and I may not be familiar with the most recent. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO Howarth. Through the chair to Councillor Hawes, I believe it was, that you are absolutely correct. The decision of the day of the council was to leave our bylaw in place because the peace officers do not have the authorities as they had in the past through the province. So in order for us to enforce the mask bylaw on a local level with our peace officers, we would need that bylaw in place.
So for me, yeah, and with that information, I wouldn't be in favor of rescinding it at this time. I just think that, again, if our citizens have concerns, turning to our RCMP, they have other matters that they can tend to, and our protective services officer can assist in that area. So unless somebody else has anything else, that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council? Councillor Taylor.
Just a question, how much enforcement have our bylaw officers done on this?
Administration.
Mr. Dubois, please.
Through the chair to Councillor Taylor, we have done quite a bit of enforcement. We've dealt with several complaints. We've only issued a handful of tickets, actual tickets, because we gain compliance to the mask bylaw through education and discussion with our citizens.
Councillor Taylor.
I appreciate the new information. I have nothing.
Perfect. Council, anything further for this item this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our second discussion item, new business in Hinton, a discussion item by Councillor Taylor.
Mayor Michaels?
Oh, sorry, my apologies, Mr. Taylor. Councillor Stashik.
I would like to move that council go into closed session. Reason being, then Councillor Taylor can present the information that he's unsure it can go into public or not. We can make a decision on that and then come back out and continue with the discussion item. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, we have a motion to go into closed session. CO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. And I'm bringing this up with the apology ahead of time that I don't have the answer to it off the top of my head, but I'm not sure what FOIP section you would be referencing going into closed session. I'm assuming it's related to land, perhaps. And sorry, my apology. I'm not sure again exactly where Councillor Taylor may want to go with this, but if we can just reference a FOIP section when you go into camera, please. This is not on the agenda.
Councillor Taylor.
The section, I think it's 25, related to agreements.
The administration, any?
Again, my apologies. We just don't have access to our supports for that. And
Councillor LeBaire.
what am I, take a break? Sorry.
Is it not the same section we used for the discussion of the Bhutan lands?
Yeah, same one.
Okay, so I think that's section either 24 or 17. Okay.
Perhaps if council wants to take a bit of a recess, we can look this up for you if we understand that is related to a similar topic to that. We just want to verify and get the right. We'll Google that quickly as we take a recess.
Well, for council, is there an appetite to clarify the section? If we speak to lands, it could just be under the section of lands. To me, I have no knowledge of us having to state the exact number prior.
Okay.
But what is the will of council? We have a motion to go in camera. Are people prepared to vote, or do we want to take a recess? Councillor McEwen.
I'm comfortable with moving in camera because it was covered under a FOIP section. If the FOIP section is necessary during that transition, I would think that we could reference the section number, unless there's something I'm not aware of, but I'd be comfortable voting at this point.
Yeah, myself too. Any objection to that? Seeing none, I'll call to question to go into closed session. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'd like to reconvene this meeting at 5:46. And for those who are watching this over the recording, we went into closed session there for proprietary reasons tied to this item and the fact that it's private land and it falls within the FOIP of the land section. So that was a reason to go into closed session. But with that being said, council, any further debate or questions regarding this discussion item this evening? And seeing none, that'll bring us to our information items. The first one is our civic partnerships and donation request status. CEO Howard.
Mayor Michaels. So again, this report, so we had intended to bring it at the end of 2021, and with Ms. Way. It's been picked up with Ms. Fox as sort of a combined co-author of it. So it's, the timing of it is most important because it's information that you'll need for your meetings this weekend, for your committee meetings on the 14th and 15th around the operating budget. So I certainly won't go through it in any detail. It is an information item. You'll see this come forward for some decision direction as part of your budget process this weekend and in future meetings. So I would, and again, apologies, neither report author is here this evening, but I will try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, CEO Howard. Council. Councillor LeBerge.
Is the Hinton Library not a civic agency?
Mayor Michaels through to Councillor Bears. No, they are a council appointed board by bylaw of council.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Magoon, Hawes, and Taylor.
Sorry, I believe Councillor Hawes was first.
Councillor Magoon.
No, you know what, if I was going to make the recommended action, I want to make sure my colleagues have a chance to ask questions.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hawes.
Thank you. I just have, I guess, one question about the airport agreement. We've talked about this in past councils, the amount and the investment in that area. And has there been any discussion with Yolo County to discuss this budget and any renegotiation whatsoever? I do recall at one point, I think it was 100,000. I see it's 90,000 now, but I just wonder, is this an expense to that degree? Are we benefiting from it as a community is my wonder. And is there a possibility of reducing it?
CEO Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels, through to Councillor Hawes. In the report, it looks like we have a longstanding agreement right now, the way that stands. I'm not familiar with the details of the agreement and what that would take to open that up and have that conversation. And certainly in the last 6 months, I'm also not aware of any conversations that's been that the town has initiated for Yellowhead County, but I'm sure we can, if it's something that council wants to explore, we can take a closer look at that and have a better response. It's the collective will of council to explore this differently.
If I may, I guess the one thing is we're budgeting 90,000, but are we spending the 90,000? How is it utilized? Like, from what I understand, as money goes to Yolo County then uses that money to maintain the airport. We're not actually physically doing anything. We're just funding it. And I guess, there's been really no, I think, reporting potentially of this, what work is done there, what kind of things are done there. Is there a capital reserve that this is going into potentially? I guess my question is there's a few questions around that dollar figure and, just having maybe more information on that. And maybe it's not for a decision tonight, but moving forward, I think it's potentially something that we should look at. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Taylor.
Yeah, just wondering about the Hinton Historical Society, $65,000 in light of the information that there was a motion in the last year that the amount be adjusted to 55,000. The council made 6-1. Is that a reason to modify this number?
Administration.
We use that as a starting point now?
My apologies. Where are you, sorry, your reference? And,
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
just to reiterate your
I'm
question
sorry.
again.
Figure 1-1.
Okay, thank you. And
Figure 1-1. And with figure 1-1 with the Hinton Historical Society, it's got the funding for 2022 is 65,000. And what I'm wondering about is there was a motion last year. Councillor Nelson put forward that the Hinton Historical Society funding be adjusted to 65 and the funding for 2022 be adjusted to 55,000, and that motion passed. So I'm thinking that this $65,000 number is really 55
for 2021?
for 2022.
Oh, for 2022. The group as every group, can ask for something different than is already decided. So while I believe you're correct on the motion that you've quoted there, that a decision was already made of council, council can decide to do something different moving forward. So the group is asking for more than what the last council direction and decision was, and that's for council to deliberate during your budget process.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Taylor. Councilor LeBert.
Well, a couple of clarifying things, and I guess is because according to figure 1.1, we've included 65, but the approved amount is 55. So I guess my question before we kick it off on Friday, shouldn't that amount be adjusted? But the comment I was going to make before that, so the bottom of page 23, and it's clarifying again, please. It says administration recommends that further conversations be had with Yellowhead County to review the agreement, the current terms as identified, and that the municipality was to be conferred with a minimum of 3 times per year. I'm curious, has that happened? And this seems to say we should actually be sitting down to reopen the agreement.
Administration.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Through to Councilor Berge. I agree that it seems to imply that that has not been met. Certainly since my time in the interim CAO position, I have not been made aware that and received any information from them. So whether that reporting is supposed to be at our request and we're supposed to initiate that, or if that's supposed to just be something that comes out to the partnership in this, I'm not familiar with that agreement, but we can take a closer look at that and perhaps even try to have a little bit more accurate and better answer this weekend for you.
Thank you, administration. Councilor Magoon, Astashik, then Race.
No, I will continue to withdraw until council's satisfied.
Councilor Astashik.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. Just a little bit more information on Councillor Taylor's remarks regarding the Hinton Historical Society. My apologies to council and administration because I didn't catch it until I was reviewing the agenda package this afternoon in preparation for our meeting. But I did forward an email to administration and council to clarify that there was an existing past motion to set the Hinton Historical Society's funding for 2022 at $55,000. So the only thing that I was going to point out to indicate is the green column, which is the 2022 total funding included in the draft base budget. It should likely be 55,000, not 65,000. The pink column to the right of it, which is the 2021 funding, it indicates 65,000, and that is correct. That's what was allocated by council for 2021, but there was a motion that passed to say that the 2022 should be allocated at 55,000.
Thank you, Mayor Michael. Through to Councilor Ostashik. At this point, what we can do is make sure that off the top of the meeting, our budget meetings this weekend, is that Mr. Osmond make that note and adjustment right off the bat, because of course, as you know, the exercise for that day and a half is all based on, is founded on your base budget. So if that base budget is off by that $10,000, we need to, we'll demonstrate that in the document when we get started that day, and then everything else will be adjusted accordingly. So I've made a note of that, and we'll make sure we bring that forward right off the bat on Friday.
Can I follow up, Mr. Mayor? Does that require an amendment of this document then before we accept for administrator for information then?
Sorry, I'm pausing on that one. I don't know if it's, we could do that, although typically the intent of doing that is so that moving forward, we can make that change, and we can't because your other agenda's already come out, and that's already, this new number cannot be changed moving forward, but at least it would be documented in the minutes that you approved. Approving this as just an information item. You can say as amended on that page, and then unless if there's any other changes, I guess, that anybody noticed.
So with that, council, is there an appetite to make an amendment to this draft document, Councillor Stashik?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that the civic partnerships and donation request status spreadsheet. Sorry. I'd like to move that the civic partnerships and donation request status spreadsheet.
Figure 1.1.
I know it's splitting hairs, but it's status spreadsheet. It's the title of the document. Well, that's okay. To be amended. To change the Hinton Historical Society (2022) total funding included in draft base budget to $55,000. Per previous direction of council. And as long as that's legislatively adequate, I think I've already spoken to the reasons why. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stashik. Council, we have a direction on the floor. If we can speak to this, I'll create a different queue. Councillor Taylor.
Is that figure 1.1 that you're talking about, Albert? Councillor Stashik?
Councillor Stashik?
Yes, it is, Councillor Taylor. It's figure 1.1, 3/4 of the way down, and it would be the green column. Currently
Yeah.
says 65,000, and it should be amended
Yeah.
to 55,000.
No, I get that. If it's figure 1.1, there's two other changes. One is that the Pine Valley Fundraising Committee didn't ask for 100,000, they asked for 50,000. And that the West Yellowhead Trail Society asked for not 50, but 100,000. So is it worth making those changes too? Or those don't affect the budget, so that maybe might not worth it.
So the council, we have the opportunity to combine some if we want. We could just go one by one like this. We have them like this. Do you have a request for Councillor Stashik, or council, is there appetite to go in a different route?
No, I'm just, I'll leave it to Albert.
Councillor Stashik.
Yeah, I would prefer that this amendment stand on its own. If there's others, that's fine. They can be considered as well. That did actually bring to my attention, though, that the 2022 funding approval required column would also need to be amended to $30,000 rather than 20,000. So does that need to be captured in the amendment as well, administration?
Thank you. I'm just realized there might be a we should probably go through this in a methodical way. Just, I don't know if it's top to bottom or start with this one and kind of do each one individually. I've already lost, we're talking about 30,000. So my apologies. I'm trying to make the right notes on the first things here. So if I could just ask, at this point, you're not committing to approve the report at any point. You're just making a one-off amendment to that. And so if there's any other ones, probably best to do them individually.
So for clarification purposes, considering this motion, if passed, would change the math for that call, for the last yellow column, I think the question is, do we have to add that within the motion, or then the math will just be changed from 20 to 30,000 is the difference of ask? Which we would then leave with administration to clean up. That would be my preference instead of, unless administration, yeah, any thoughts on that?
Correct, instead of sort of not wordsmithing, but mathsmithing it, what it would trickle out and what the totals would therefore be in the bottom line. If you could leave us to the formulas, we will make those changes, and it should just automatically make changes to the totals, unless you wanted to do that collectively together now.
Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any further debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that civic partnership and donation request status spreadsheet be amended to change the Hinton Historical Society 2022 total funding included in draft-based budget to 55,000 for previous direction of council. Council, all those in favor? Pass unanimously. Council. I'll go back to the main queue. I have Councillor Race, Haas, and Taylor.
Thank you, sir. I'll withdraw. Councillor Stash covered my concern.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor Haas.
Yeah, just sort of some clarification moving into our meetings on the 14th and 15th, and it's to Councillor Labarge's comments about the Yellowhead County agreement with the airport. We always have the privy during that discussion that we could also, and I know we've done this in the past, where request for a decision or whatever, but the money might be put aside, but then held basically until, you know, maybe negotiations or agreements or something like that are started. You know, that's a option that we may have on the 14th and 15th. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, administration. Councillor Haas. I have Councillor Taylor.
I don't want to make any motions. I just want to simply draw your attention to a few things you should be aware of. They don't change the math or anything, I believe. And that was that the Pine Valley and the West Yellowhead Trail Society, so I indicated that looks like it's being flipped. You know about it, great. On page 33 of 110, the last sentence there, give you a minute to get there.
Sorry, which page?
33 of 112. The Trail Society decision will also have ongoing operational impacts for council consideration, currently identified at $50,000 per year. That's right, it is $50,000 a year for the whole trail, which is 26 kilometers, but the part in the town's boundary as they presented for maintenance was going to be a small fraction of that for 1.5 to 2 kilometers. So it's not going to be $50,000, it's going to be a way smaller fraction of that.
3,000. It's in the report.
Okay, as long as you're aware of that.
Thank you. Council, no one in queue. Any directions to change anything further on the spreadsheet or anywhere else? Councilor Magoon?
Well, I mean, given the fact that we have, we identified the sort of the differential with the previous motion, I think the two that Councillor Taylor identified, the Pine Valley fundraising request and the Trail Society request, I think clarifying those would probably be best if we're going to pass this as an informational item. I'm willing to make it, I suppose, if nobody else has. I'd make the motion that the civic partnership and donation request status spreadsheet be amended to reflect a 2022 total funding requested from Pine Valley Fundraising Committee to $50,000. And the West Yellowhead Trail Society total of $100,000. I think that's correct, Council?
Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any questions, comments, debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that the civic partnership and donation request spreadsheet be amended to reflect a 2022 total funding requested from Pine Valley Lodge Fundraising Committee to $50,000 and the West Yellowhead Trail Society total of $100,000. Council, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Council, anything further? And seeing, oh, Councilor Magoo.
If there's nothing else, then I'm willing to put forward a motion, Mr. Mayor. To make the motion that council accept the civic partnerships and donation requests status report for information as amended.
Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate, questions? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council accept the civic partnership and donation request status report as amended. Council, all those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Council, anything further for this item this evening? And seeing none, that'll bring us to our council information packages or package number 1 for January 2022. Council, any questions or direction? Councillor Hawes.
Before I move, I just want to thank one of the scholarship recipients for their letter. I appreciate to see, you know, that money going forward and what it's going to. So I just want to thank, I want to get her name correct here, Montana Cavill, for that letter. So, and on that, I'd like to move that we accept council information package number 1 for January 2022.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Council, we have a motion on the floor. Any debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. That'll bring us to a reporting, and this evening I will start to my left with Councillor Ostashik.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Ostashik. Councillor Magoon.
I have nothing to report, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Councillor Hawes.
Just simply, Happy New Year to everybody. It's our first meeting back from, and I had a pleasant Christmas, but cold Christmas with my family, but yeah, Happy New Year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hawes. Councillor Taylor.
I did attend a Forest Resource Action Committee meeting with West Fraser, and apparently lumber prices are doing good. And mountain pine beetle populations, as we all know, are down. And because of the recent cold spell being in excess of the -35, -36, that's going to have another negative. That's the criteria for killing them under the bark. So it's going to give a good keeping them down. And then, of course, the hot spell from last year that'll basically help keep it down, because it affected the larvae under the tree, fried the larvae in the tree. So it looks like it should be helpful. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Race.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have nothing to report.
Thank you, Councillor Race. Councillor LeBerge.
Just, I guess that's the first good news I've heard about climate change. We're getting rid of the beetles, so. And I have nothing to report, but I would also like to say Happy New Year to everybody. My Christmas was 12 people, 6 dogs, and too cold to go outside, so it was tough.
Yeah, almost sounds like a song.
See you.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor LeBerge, and for myself, nothing to report, but obviously Happy New Year's, as my other fellow councillors commented on. And that'll bring us to our urgent matters. Council, any urgent matters this evening? Seeing none, that'll bring us to our Chief Administrative Officer, C.O. Howard.
Thank you, Mayor Michaels. I have nothing to report this evening, not for the public.
Okay, perfect. Thank you for that. That'll bring us to our administrative inquiries. Are there any that were submitted?
None.
Thank you, administration, for that. Council, any notices of motion? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go into closed session with a 5-minute recess. Councillor Haas.
Make the motion to go in closed session with a 5-minute recess.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, all those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you. All right. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to reconvene this meeting at 7:54. Council? Councillor Haas.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council direct administration to enter into the Hinton Golf Course Memorandum of Understanding as discussed in closed session at tonight's January 11th, 2022 meeting of regular council meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Any discussion, comments, debate? Councillor Magoo?
At the January 11th?
Okay, Council, any further questions, debate? Seeing none, I'll call to question that council direct administration to enter into a Hinton Golf Course Memorandum of Understanding as discussed in closed session at the January 11th, 2022 regular council meeting. Council, all those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Councillor Magoon.
I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting, your worship.
Thank you, Councillor Magoon. Council, we have a direction on the floor. Seeing no one, I'll call to question. All those in favor? That's passed, and I'll entertain a motion to go in closed session. Councillor Haas.
I'd like to make the motion to go into closed session, please.
Thank you, Councillor Haas. Council, all those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Thank you, everyone.